Jewish Insights with Justin Pines on JBS is made possible in part by the clubs at Pearl River, New York, luxury rental communities for ages 55 and better, now leasing Phase 3 at the Reserve, and the B.L. Manger Foundation.
הנה מה טוב ומה נעים שבת אחים גם יחד הנה מה טוב ומה נעים שבת אחים גם
Shalom
יחד.
and welcome to Jewish Insights. I am so thrilled to welcome back Gila Fine, author of The Madwoman in the Rabbi's Attic, rereading The Woman of the Talmud. Since our last conversation, the book has gone on to win major and well-deserved recognition, including the National Book Award and the Rabbi Sachs Book Prize, two of the most prestigious prizes in Jewish writing. And as you can see on the newest version of the copy, you have both prizes on there, which is very exciting. I'm so excited for you. If you haven't read the book yet, read this book. And if you haven't seen our previous conversation, watch or listen to it. For this episode, we're turning from her book to a very different kind of story, one that arrives each summer, often quietly, but carries surprising depth. I'm talking about Tu B'Av, the 15th of Av. On the surface, it is known as the Jewish holiday of love, with roots in young women dancing in white in the vineyards of Jerusalem. But behind the poetic imagery lies a tapestry of themes: reconciliation after division, renewal after destruction, and the hope of love, romantic and spiritual, emerging from the ashes of our mourning. Tu B'Av, the Talmud tells us, is one of the two happiest days in the Jewish calendar, alongside Yom Kippur. That'll be a different interview, why Yom Kippur is the happiest day. And perhaps most striking, it comes just 6 days after Tisha B'Av, our day of deep national sorrow, as if to say, after the darkness comes love. In our personal family, Tu B'Av is also one of the happiest days in the Jewish calendar because it marks the date when my wife Talia and I became parents. Tu B'Av is our daughter Olivia's birthday. Over the next hour, Gila will take us on a journey to better understand Tu B'Av and its significance. In particular, we'll explore what is the rabbinic view of love. Because we are studying with Gila, you can expect dazzling scholarship, a soulful presence, and more than a few surprises. Gila, welcome back. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to be back here.
All right, so
and happy birthday to Olivia.
Oh, thank you very much. That's very sweet. I'll tell her you said that. We already discussed that. My mother-in-law is a fan as well. So first, before we get into Tu B'Av, this has been a whirlwind. It's a tour. I think you said this is your 4th of 5 trips to America. You've been on tour,
right,
winning lots of awards. Just some reflections on this experience of, putting several years into a book and then it going out into the world and massive reception, selling out, reprinting, speaking all over the place. What's it been like for you?
Well, when you put it that way, I think, wow, it has been a lot. It has been a whirlwind, a lovely whirlwind, but a whirlwind nonetheless. And I feel like I'm kind of still in the eye of it. And so I imagine that the book just celebrated its 1-year birthday, and I'm still kind of in the middle of that first year of book touring and speaking to people and interviewing about it. And I feel like when the year draws to a close, which I expect it to happen soon, I'll have some time to reflect and really understand what has happened, because it's a very strange experience. Writing is so solitary. And I spent years on my own, just with the thoughts in my head, trying to put them on paper, and not knowing how it will be, not knowing if it will ever make it out there, and if it does, how people will receive it, and whether it will land in the way that I hoped that it would land. And so the past year has really, it's been a joy, and it's been extremely gratifying to know that the book has touched people and inspired people, and it's really anything I could have hoped for, and then some.
Beautiful. Any learning or surprises that along this journey so far that you're comfortable sharing?
Many. Again, I have these good questions
it's
that I've not
soon.
thought about.
It's
too soon. I'm in the middle of it. I think I've been very pleasantly surprised at just how warm the reception was. I didn't know, as I say, I didn't know how the book would land, and I didn't know how the book would play on different people's religious sensibilities. And the book is quite out there because the Talmud is quite out there. And so I think I've been surprised at the number of messages I've gotten from very right-wing readers, many right-wing rabbis who sort of write to me and say, really appreciated your approach. Don't quite agree with your feminism, but I really like that you're reading Agadah, the stories of the Talmud, properly. And it's been nice that really people across the Jewish spectrum have embraced, yes, the book, but I see this as something bigger. I see this as an embrace really of rabbinic storytelling and the timeless wisdom of the Talmud.
Beautiful. I'll add one note to that, and then I want to continue with rabbinic storytelling, which is just to say, the way you describe it just now is so powerful. I think of people, imagining people studying Talmud and being like, they're doing this mundane thing, and it's so boring, and it's so vanilla, and they just repeat it over and over again, and you reminding us and describing the Talmud is so radical, and they're actually doing this cutting-edge thing, and the fact that they do it generation after generation, and there's a deep return and swelling around Talmud, certainly recently, is a reminder that, like, no, they're not doing it because it's boring and expected. They're doing it because there's actually something so powerful there and so radical there, and we all, need to get our sleeves rolled up and get in there.
100%. And I think part of the reason that Agadah is having such a moment today in the 21st century, and I discuss this in the book, is we are probably the very first generation in Jewish history, because we live in this postmodernist age, we are able to really get into that subversive mindset with which these stories were initially created, because the rabbis were extremely radical and subversive. They were an intellectual vanguard. They were not at all what Judaism later became. And in a way, it's taken us a millennium and a half to return to that very radical headspace, and we are more able to read these stories today than perhaps ever before, which makes it a really exciting time to be an Aggadist.
Wow, beautiful. All right, so on that note, let's bring rabbinic storytelling to the holiday of Tu B'Av. Just give me a sentence to bring us into what Tu B'Av is, and then I just want to let you run, and I'll be the student, and I'm excited to learn about Tu B'Av from you.
So I'm not sure I can add much to your beautiful introduction of Tu B'Av, but it is popularly known as the Jewish Valentine's Day, as it were. It is the Jewish celebration of love. It goes back to the practice that we had in antiquity of the women all dressing up in white and going out to the vineyards and dancing, and the men sort of a ancient Jewish dating ritual, the men all kind of coming to look at them and each one kind of choosing a wife for himself. And it has remained throughout Jewish history this beacon of light that comes directly after the very tragic time of the 3 weeks and the 9 days, the anniversary of the destruction, where we sort of lift our heads again and remind ourselves that, after destruction, there is redemption, there is a future.
Beautiful. All right, so teach me Torah.
Right. So I think last time I was here, we spoke about Agadah, which is rabbinic storytelling. And I think I mentioned, you'll remind me if not, but there are two main subgenres within rabbinic storytelling. There is Midrash, which are the stories the rabbis told about the Bible, and there is rabbinic legend, which are the stories the rabbis told about themselves. And my field, and the subject to which my book is devoted, is rabbinic legend. But today, in honor of Tu B'Av, I thought I might attempt a Midrash, which I don't do as often. But there is this fascinating piece of Midrash, which in my mind, or at least the way I read it, is essentially a rabbinic meditation on love.
Beautiful. Okay, great. Let me just make sure I caught it all. There's two types of, I guess, rabbinic literature, you're calling it. Rabbinic literature fitting under the idea of the oral Torah, like the oral tradition that's been passed down. And within that, we have those that are about the rabbis themselves, like Rabbi so-and-so was in a field one day, blah, blah, blah happened. And then the other is, here's a story you already have in our canon, in the Jewish Bible, and now here's the story behind the story.
Yes.
Or some story about the story. And you were doing the latter. Your book is mostly the former.
Yes.
Or exclusively the former, and now we're going to play in the latter.
Yes.
Great.
I mean, there are several genres within rabbinic storytelling, but those are the main two. Mm-hmm. And the rabbis, when they feel the need to tell a story about something in the Bible, it's usually because there's a difficulty in the biblical story, or there's a gap that they want to fill, or they want to somehow close the distance between the biblical world and their own. There are various functions to Midrash. And so generally the rule of thumb, which again I discuss in my book, is if you read a rabbinic story, there are exactly two things you need to do if you're going to try and unpack it. You have to zoom in and do a close reading of the text, and you have to zoom out and look at the context. And I want to begin with the context. The context, in the case of Midrash, is always that biblical verse or incident which the rabbis are commenting on. So let's actually begin with the Bible. We have, toward the end of the book of Exodus, a lengthy description of the tabernacle, the Mishkan, and the different implements, the different ritual objects which were built to furnish the tabernacle, the same ritual objects which will later furnish the temple in Jerusalem. We have long descriptions of the Ark of the Covenant, and the table, and the menorah, and the golden altar, and the bronze altar. And then in just one verse, one very, very brief description, we have the bronze basin. The bronze basin was a basin made out of bronze that stood in the entrance to the sanctuary, and the priest would use it to wash their hands and feet before entering. And so the book of Exodus gives us a description, again, in one short verse, and I quote, "He made the basin of bronze and its stand of bronze from the mirrors of the ministering women who ministered in the entrance of the tent of meeting." So
I'll have you repeat that just so we can follow along. Say it one more time, please.
He made the basin of bronze and its stand...
He is Bezalel? He is
the
artisan of the tabernacle.
Yes,
keep going.
The interior designer of the tabernacle. He made the basin of bronze and its stand of bronze from the mirrors of the ministering women. And I want to actually... This is a translation and it's a choice. I want to look at the original Hebrew.
Sure.
We are told that the bronze basin is made out of hamarot hatzovot, which is a very difficult Hebrew phrase, even if you are a native Hebrew speaker. The word marot, according to the Biblical Encyclopedia, this is the one place in the Bible where mirrors are mentioned. And sovot is an even more difficult Hebrew word. Nobody really knows what that word means. Because of its feminine suffix ot, it's generally understood to describe the women to whom these mirrors belonged. And it's been variously interpreted as the mirrors of the ministering women, which is the translation I read out, but you also have the mirrors of the reveling women and the mirrors of the congregating women.
And that word is also often adjacent to God. So it's Hashem Tzvaot.
Okay, very good. Very good. So you're already 3 steps ahead.
Fine, so we can get there if you want. I don't
No, you're great. So on the basis of that, and very much in line with what you just said, the rabbis come along and they see this difficult phrase and they give us an entire story, an entire Midrash, to explain this difficult phrase. The story appears in the late Midrashic work of the Tanchuma, which is from 9th century Israel. And I think we'll just dive in and read it, and then we'll try and unpack it bit by bit.
Beautiful. Let me ask you one question before we go ahead. So we're going to unpack what the mirrors of this bronze basin are. What's the Hebrew word for the bronze basin, for those keeping track at home?
Kior hanechoshet.
Okay, beautiful. And I'll just say I'm a Kohen, so I would have been washing my hands and feet with this thing.
Well then I'm even more glad that we get to do this together, because please God, you will use that basin one day, and you'll know what it's about.
All right, I'll have some meaning. Great, okay, great. So all right, so let's jump in.
Would you do the honors?
I would do the honor.
Thank
I have
you.
a text here that I printed in advance that Gila sent me, which I have not read because I wanted to be surprised and take it all in. So here we go. You find that when Israel were in harsh labor in Egypt, Pharaoh decreed that they should not sleep at home nor have relations with their wives. What did the daughters of Israel do? They would go down to draw water from the river, whereupon the Holy One, blessed be He, prepared small fishes for them inside their jars. They would sell some, cook some, and buy with the proceeds wine, and go out into the fields and give their husbands to eat there. I'm just making sure I got all this, okay? So they go down to the water. I'm just making sure we're keeping track here. I don't want to get stuck in the text. They weren't allowed to be around, the husband and wives weren't allowed to be around each other when they were in Mitzrayim, and the daughters of Israel would go down to the water, and they had jars, and the jars would not only get water, they would get some fish inside them, and they would use that fish to sell, cook, and buy wine, and then meet their husbands in the field to give them lunch.
Yep,
Great.
Perfect.
After they had eaten and drunk, they took the mirrors and looked into them with their husbands. And she would say, I am more beautiful than you. And he would say, I am more beautiful than you. In the course of this, they would accustom themselves to desire, and they were fruitful and multiplied. The Holy One, blessed be He, blessing them with issue. Just one question for me there. So they're eating and drinking. It says they took mirrors. Is that what, we don't know what the mirrors are from, or that's the first time they're mentioned, mirrors?
That's the first time they're mentioned,
Okay,
yes.
great. And then there was some element of them gazing into the mirrors, first them, then their husbands, and that would kind of increase their desire.
Good.
Okay, and they were able to have children. Through the merit of those same mirrors, which they showed their husbands to accustom them to desire in the midst of harsh labor, they raised up all the hosts. Is that the word tzvaot again?
Very good.
All right.
You got it.
All right, come on. I'm trying to get an A+ in your class, Gila. Here we go. All right, so there's a connection between them doing that work in the fields at the time. In the midst of harsh labor, they raised up the tzvaot, which I assume you'll help us understand at some point.
No, you will help us understand.
Okay. Keep going.
Yes,
Great.
please.
As soon as the Holy One, blessed be He, told Moses, to make the tabernacles, all Israel came along to contribute. Some brought silver, some gold or brass, onyx, and stones to be set. Right? Everyone contributed to help make the Mishkan. They readily brought everything. Whereupon the women said, what have we to contribute to the offering of the tabernacle? They came along and brought the mirrors and presented them to Moses. When Moses saw the mirrors, he was furious with them. He said to Israel, take sticks and break the legs of those who brought them. What use are such mirrors? I thought Moses only got mad once or twice. I guess we have another one here.
Yep.
But he was upset that they said, we want to give something. And they brought these very mirrors that we talked about earlier. And Moses is not into it. Take sticks and break the legs who brought them. What use are they? Said the Holy One, blessed be He, to Moses, Moses, these you despise. It was these mirrors which raised up all these hosts in Egypt. Again, that word hosts. Take them and make out of them the basin and its stand for the priests in which they can purify themselves. So God responds, how could you be mad at these? It was these actual mirrors that raised up all these tzvaot in Egypt. I'm using that word because I don't know what host means in English either.
Good.
Take them
nice
and make...
touch on the voice of God there.
James Earl Jones, or something like that. Take them and make them, all right, and use those to make this basin that we've been discussing, as it is stated. And now here's our actual text. And he made the basin and its stands of bronze out of the mirrors that raised up hosts. Right, that's what you read before. Those same mirrors which raised up all these hosts. Okay, so
Shkach.
yeah, we have the story that you shared. We have the text which says the mirrors came from the women, and now we have the story behind the mirrors from here.
Exactly right.
Okay.
So on a very basic level, how does this story explain the word savot?
Great. I'm looking. They need to be raised up, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. They're constantly being raised up. And it seems like through the merit of those same mirrors which they showed their husbands to accustom them to desire in the midst of harsh labor, they raised up all the hosts.
Yes.
It's a good thing, that's for sure.
Yep.
And now it says, and in the text, and he made the basin and its stand of bronze out of the mirrors that raised up hosts.
Hosts. So savot here is translated as hosts.
Right.
Which is what? Going back to your connection between savot and tzvaot.
Wait, first of all, clarify. So I missed that. This is tzavot.
Sovot.
Sovot.
Yes.
And by God we say tzavaot.
Yes, which is almost the same.
They're friends. Okay, fine. Something like holy. I don't know. It feels like something that's like it's being raised up. It feels like it's like angelic or something special. Something.
What Hebrew word does it remind you of?
Like tzavah, like an army.
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
All right.
Army. These are the mirrors that raised up legions and legions, whole armies of Israelite babies.
Okay. He's saying, Moses, look around.
Yes,
This army around you, all these people you saved, they don't exist without these mirrors. How could you think that they're a bad thing?
Exactly right.
Okay.
So on a very basic level, this entire story comes to explain this one word, savot. But as is often the case with Midrash, the explanatory function is really just the beginning. This Midrash is actually trying to say, I think, something a lot deeper. So let's actually dive in.
Great.
And now we're going to zoom in and do a close reading of the text and unpack it bit by bit. So let's begin, as I generally like to begin, with structure. How many acts or scenes do you see in this story?
Okay. We have the original scene of what was happening in Mitzrayim.
Yep, good.
And them going down to the water. That feels like its own piece of it, I guess. And then the second one is them meeting their husbands in the fields. Is that two separate? Does that count or not?
I'm really going to do it very, very basically right now.
So we have the past.
Good.
And then we have the time of building the basin.
Exactly right.
Okay, great.
There are basically two acts of the story. We can subdivide them into scenes, but I don't think we need to. We've got Act 1, which is in the fields of Egypt during the time of the enslavement of the Israelites by the Egyptians. And then we have Act 2 in the Sinai desert when the Israelites are building the tabernacle. And I actually want to begin with part 2 because part 1 I think is the more complicated one, and we'll have to spend more time on that. So part 2 begins sort of with this Kickstarter campaign for the building of the tabernacle. People are contributing all of their earthly goods, the silver, the gold, the brass, the onyx, the stones. And the women want to contribute something as well, but they don't have property. So they bring, the Midrash tells us, the one thing that they have to bring, which is
The mirrors.
the mirrors that they brought with them from Egypt. How does Moses respond to this suggested donation?
He is definitely not into it.
He is not into it.
It's like he's violent.
Yes, take sticks and break their legs. It's a violent response.
Yeah.
Why do you think he responds so violently to the mirrors?
Because we're associating the mirrors with, let's call it, sexual activity, for lack of a better term. And sexual activity is, how could you bring that thing which is no good into this holy place, which is
exactly
pure?
right. These mirrors are instruments of seduction. They are object of sexual arousal. They do not belong in the Holy of Holies, that is the tabernacle and later the temple. And just to strengthen your explanation, there's a verse in Deuteronomy, and I'm going to quote it, "You shall not bring the hire of a harlot into the house of the Lord your God as payment." So money, if it at any point exchanged hands for sexual favors, that money cannot then be donated to the temple, not even like for general upkeep, not even to pay the janitor. So Vespasian famously says that money has no smell. It does not accrue value. Not according to the Torah. According to the Torah, if money at any point becomes sexually tainted, you cannot donate it to the temple.
Right. And to zoom out for a second, it's not only that. There are other categories of things that are not kosher to be brought to the temple across the board.
Yes.
There's a sense of there's things that you can bring to the temple, things that you can't.
Right.
We just had Tisha B'Av, the idea of bringing a blemished animal as a sacrifice, not allowed. There's a whole story there. So this seems to Moses on its face to fit into the category of things that should not be brought into.
That's a good way of thinking about it. There are things that do not belong in the holy, and according to Moses, the mirrors are one of them.
Great.
But let's complicate that.
Okay.
Because there's another list in the book of Numbers of different donations that the Israelites brought for the tabernacle, including like a Tiffany's catalog of jewelry, different pieces of jewelry that the Israelites contributed. And on this list are the two jewels, agil and kumaz, which the rabbis tell us are highly eroticized pieces of jewelry. They're basically piercings in intimate female organs.
Wow.
Yes.
Did not know that.
Yes. Many people don't. And yet, these are fine for some reason. Moses does not seem to have a problem with these. So why? Why then single out the mirrors for rejection?
Right. And I'll ask a side note, I don't know if you have a thought on it, which is when I first read this, I was like, I thought women did give jewelry. I remember that, so I was kind of surprised with like, what can we possibly give?
Yeah.
I don't know if you have a thought on that, or if I'm taking this the wrong way.
I think the Midrash wants to make the point that the mirrors belong to women, and I think it just adds dramatic tension to say they had nothing else. They brought the one thing that they had.
Right. Okay.
You
fine.
know?
Okay. Sorry, but I didn't want to.
No. It's a really good question. The 16th century commentator, the Maharal, explains the difference between the jewelry and the mirrors by saying that the jewelry was all melted down, so that it lost its original form, whereas the mirrors remained intact, and therefore they had to be rejected.
Ah, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. It's a very interesting reading. I'd like to offer a different, slightly less technical one.
Sure.
And here I want to go back to the first act of the story, and this time we're going to actually read this closely and try and unpack it sentence by sentence. So would you take us back to the top, please?
Yes. You find that when Israel were in harsh labor in Egypt, Pharaoh decreed that they should not sleep at home, nor have relations with their wives.
Thank you. So we're told that at the beginning of the enslavement of the Israelites by Pharaoh, Pharaoh removes the men from the home and prohibits sexual relations. Why?
Well, it's interesting. That also caught my eye because usually the story is that there was nothing about them not getting pregnant, but there was this idea of killing Jewish babies or killing Jewish firstborns.
Right.
And now we're saying you're not allowed to have relations.
Yes.
I don't know if this comes before or after that.
It seems to come before.
Okay. first no relations, and that obviously was not successful, as we
Right,
discover later
right.
in the paragraph. And
Exactly.
then let's throw the babies in the Nile.
Exactly.
Okay, fine. Sorry. Wait, did I answer your question though?
Why no sexual relations? I think you're already touching upon it.
I jumped ahead, right?
Yes.
That there's this fear that, right? I don't know if this is Midrash also, but the Pharaoh had a sense that I guess in the text it says Pharaoh's worried that they're going to become a fifth column, and the Midrash says Pharaoh's worried that there's going to be someone who's going to like actually be the new Mashiach, whatever you want to call it, like the savior of the Jews. Either way, we don't want another generation of Jews to be born.
Exactly. So this is actually in the Torah itself. Exodus 1, we're told that the Israelites are multiplying with impressive speed. Mm-hmm. And Pharaoh says these people are going to grow more numerous and stronger than us. Excuse me. And they will succeed in fighting a war with us and freeing themselves from slavery. So this is basically demographic warfare. This is a way of stemming the Israelite birth rate. Mm-hmm. That's one reason. I submit to you that there is a second reason for this edict.
I'm going to just go by the rest of history and say that the Egyptians wanted the Jewish wives for themselves.
That's very interesting. We don't actually see that happening here. I would say it's not just demographic warfare, it's psychological warfare. Mm. Because the Egyptians are trying to enslave the Israelites. Mm. They're trying to break their spirits. And if you want to turn someone into a slave, the first thing to do is to deny them love. Mm. The person who is loved is someone who is chosen, who is privileged, who has a sense of self-esteem. Mm. It's a lot harder to break someone who is loved. Mm. So not for nothing, in every dystopian novel or TV show or film, this sort of futuristic reign of terror, there will always be a law against love. And there will always be a hero or heroine who resists the regime by engaging in some sort of illicit love affair. Mm. There are so many examples of this, but I keep thinking of Winston and Julia from 1984 by George Orwell. Winston says after the two of them have their first sexual encounter, he says, "It was a blow struck against the party. It was a political act. When you make love, you feel happy. They can't bear you to feel like that." Mm. And so when the women hatch this seduction plan, which we're going to read about, this works on both levels. Demographically, it allows for the continuation of Israelite reproduction. And psychologically, it helps preserve the men's sense of self-esteem and self-worth in a place that is trying to rob them of it.
Right, and like I know we're going to get to it, but that makes total sense as you say it, because imagining women going to the field and trying to like snap men out of something.
Exactly.
It feels like very much a psychological piece and not just a demographic piece.
100%.
Beautiful.
I think that's more or less what is going on here. So let's keep reading.
Okay. What did the daughters of Israel do?
Thank you. Stop you there. Great. The daughters of Israel. Here we have the heroines of the story.
Yes.
These are clearly the protagonists. They are the agents of redemption. The Talmud will say that it's for the merit of the righteous women of that generation that the Israelites were redeemed from Egypt. And I want to say that as such, the daughters of Israel in this story...
Wait, sorry, I want to back you up there. It says in the Talmud that for the merit of these, the women in the story, or the women...
The women in that generation,
that's
more
why
generally.
They were saved.
Yes.
Beautiful.
But it seems that what we have in this story here in the Tanhuma is an extension of what is a very basic biblical archetype, an archetype which I like to call the righteous temptress. This is a woman who redeems through an act of seduction or sexual transgression. And this is a story that the Bible tells again and again and again, which is really interesting how in the Bible redemption can often come from a very low taboo-breaking act of sexual transgression. There are 6 such women in the Bible. So again, the Bible returns to this story. Can you think of any?
Tamar.
Tamar is one.
All right. The one who gives milk.
Yes.
Come on. Wait, give me the first letter.
Why?
Yehudit.
Yehudit is 2, but that's not
wrong.
Yehudit is also connected to milk. Okay. But the inspiration for the Yehudit story is Yael. So you've got 3. You're halfway there.
Fine. I mean, Potiphar's wife seduces Yosef unsuccessfully, but that leads to good things.
Yeah, but that does not redeem anyone.
That
no, that's a
well,
bad...
Well, it leads to him going down to come up. Okay, fine.
Yeah, fair.
Give me more. I don't want to waste everyone's time.
We at the time of recording, we very recently read about one of them.
Ruth? Oh, fine, with Boaz. Okay.
Yes.
Does that count as, it's unclear if that's, I guess that's it.
Well, it counts in as much as a Moabite cannot form a liaison with a Jew.
Got it. Okay,
and they
fine.
do that. There's another woman deeply associated with another Jewish holiday.
Esther.
Esther, very good.
Wow, I'm feeling terrible
very
right now.
Good. No, you're there. And there's the earliest one, very early on in Genesis.
Not Lot's daughters, yeah?
Yeah, 100%.
As
far as they're concerned, they're repopulating the earth because they think all of humanity has been wiped out.
Okay.
And one of the children who come as a result of this liaison, this incestuous liaison, becomes the forefather of the Davidic Messianic dynasty, which is the ultimate redeemer. So,
wow.
Very good. You got 6 out of 6. And here we have a 7th. We clearly have an extension of this biblical archetype into the Midrash here, because these women also are righteous temptresses. Let's read on.
Okay, so I'm at they would go down to draw water from the river, whereupon the Holy One, blessed be He, prepared small fishes for them inside their jars.
Thank you. So in this entire first act, God appears exactly twice. This is the first time. And then the second time, can you find it?
When God blesses them.
Yes, exactly right. So really all God does in this redemption story is allow for fish, which are obvious symbols of reproduction, to swarm into the women's jars.
Totally missed that, thank you.
And then allow for babies to swarm out, and this is the Bible's words, not mine, of the women's wombs after they've had relations with their husbands. So really all God does here is let nature take its course.
Okay.
Everything else is initiated and carried out by the women who, as mentioned, are the true agents of redemption here. Let's read on.
Great. They would sell some, cook some, and buy with the proceeds wine, and go out into the fields and give their husbands to eat there.
Thank you. So I want to, you spoke about snapping them out of the moment. I want to envision this scene and seriously, because these fields of Egypt, they're a labor camp, right? Think of Siberia. Think of Dachau. And think about how incongruous this scene actually is. These are men who've been forced into hard labor. They've been beaten and broken and bruised. And then the women show up, and each woman takes a man to a far corner of the field and spreads out a picnic blanket and offers wine and fish, and it's like a summer's day picnic. There's something so incredibly out of place about this scene.
Right.
But I'd like to suggest, because it's so out of place, it works, because it snaps them out, as you say. For a few hours, the women managed to transport the men away from the horrors of the labor camp. And not for nothing, we have very similar stories in Holocaust literature of Jews doing precisely the same thing in the death camps.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I was thinking of another not as highbrow piece of art, but Shawshank Redemption. They're all prisoners. They have beers. Right?
Exactly.
Sonny, I think is his name. He gets everyone's beers on the roof.
Yes.
I don't know if he's Sonny or the one Sonny, but yeah, exactly. There's this moment where, like, for that moment, they were
free.
They were free.
Yes, that's exactly it.
All right, we got one in common, by the way.
Yeah.
Shawshank Redemption.
I think that's a good midpoint.
Yeah, that's a good one for us. Okay.
And so you would think that all of this, the fish, the wine, the picnic blankets, all of this would allow for the seduction to happen. And yet by the end of the act, we are told it was the mirrors. It was the mirrors and the mirrors alone that allowed for this to happen. So let's read on and actually look at these mirrors.
After they had eaten and drunk, they took the mirrors and looked into them with their husbands, and she would say, I am more beautiful than you. And he would say, I am more beautiful than you. In the course of this, they would accustom themselves to desire, and they were fruitful and multiplied. The Holy One, blessed be He, blessing them with issue.
Thank you. Let's stop there. I love this scene so much. What strikes you about this scene?
It's a bizarre. It's a little bizarre to imagine like them looking at themselves in the mirror and saying how beautiful they are, and also both using the same language.
Yes, good.
Yeah.
So for one thing, what strikes me is this scene is shockingly flirtatious. This is the most obviously flirtatious scene in rabbinic literature that I know. I can tell you that the first time I taught this story was at Limud UK, and there was a woman in my class who met her significant other at this conference, and to this day she tells me that when they want to flirt, they say, I'm more beautiful than you, I'm more beautiful than you, which I think is very cute.
Amazing. There you go.
And notice that it's not highbrow flirtation, right? This is not thou, my beloved, art more beautiful than I, the kind of love poetry of Song of Songs. This is like very low childish banter. I'm more beautiful than you. Nah, I'm more beautiful than you. It's like a teenage rom-com almost. And yet something about this very juvenile, very childish banter is where the Midrash finds the seed of the redemption. And to understand exactly what's going on here, I'd like to take a closer look at the mirrors.
Beautiful. Right. The point you're making is the mirrors are the things that come up later.
Yes.
So we don't have jars of fish that are in the
exactly. It's the mirrors that raised up all the hosts, not the jars of fish.
Right.
And mirrors I find endlessly fascinating because of all the different implements that humankind has sort of fashioned for itself throughout history. I don't think there's anything quite as symbolic, as fraught with cultural meaning as mirrors. Right? Since the very early days when human beings would look at their reflections in bodies of water, mirrors have come to mean a great many things. But perhaps more than anything else, mirrors have come to symbolize narcissism, man's self-involvement and self-absorption.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And it makes sense because sight kind of opens us up to the world and it keeps us sensitive and receptive to what is in front of us. Mirrors block that outward gaze, and instead they confine man to his own reflection. And there are actually halachic ramifications for this. The Talmud tells us that if we light a candle and there is a mirror between ourselves and the candle, we can't actually say a blessing because we cannot technically see the light.
Wait, break that down for me. Who's where? Your back is to them? Your face?
So this is me. I'm lighting a candle, and here is a mirror between me and the candle. I can't see the candle. The mirror comes between me and the candle. Mirrors in general come between me and the world, and all I have is me staring back at me.
Right, and I've also heard, right, you're not meant to pray in front of a mirror,
right,
or a reflective glass, that kind of thing. We
right.
also cover mirrors during Shiva, but I don't know if that's a different
I honestly, I'm not sure what the reason for that is. I wouldn't be surprised if it was something similar.
Okay.
And so mirrors really have come to symbolize all of the ills of narcissism and selfishness and insensitivity and pride. And we can see this really throughout Western culture. So we begin in antiquity with the famous myth of Narcissus, the beautiful Greek youth who falls in love with his own reflection and basically ends up lending this condition of pathological self-love, narcissism, its name. Going from antiquity...
I knew that one, by the way.
I'm sure you did. Going from antiquity to the Middle Ages, another one that you know is the medieval fairy tale Snow White, right? The narcissistic evil queen, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest one of all? And then all the way to contemporary times, we've got another one, I imagine you know, Harry Potter.
Okay.
And the Mirror of Erised, right?
I'm not holding. My daughters are. I've never made it past book 1. Don't kill me. I'm sorry. But
Mirror of Erised is in book 1, I believe.
Oh, that's fine. I mean, I also read it when I was that age. But what's the Mirror of Erised? Just say one more sentence.
So the Mirror of Erised is a thing you look into to basically see your heart's desire. And notice how J.K. Rowling, exactly like our Midrash, plays on this connection between reflection and desire, because Erised is obviously a reflection or a backward spelling of desire.
Whoa. Cool.
Yeah, I sometimes teach us Midrash, and the one thing people take away is the Erised bit. And
that'll be my Tisha B'Av present for my daughter Olivia, teaching her that after this. That's amazing. Okay, cool. Wow, it's desire backwards. Okay, so I hear you playing with it's not only narcissism, but it also is somehow connected to desire as well.
Well, narcissism is the desire for oneself. That's basically what desire is, what narcissism is. And then you've got the psychoanalyst Jacques Lacan, who speaks about primary self-love, which is the source of narcissism if you somehow don't grow up healthy. He calls it the mirror stage. So he too posits this deep connection between narcissism and mirrors. And I'd like to suggest that this right here is Moses' problem with the mirrors. Because the temple fundamentally is a place of sight.
So pause. You're saying it's not because it has to do with sexual activity, it has to do with narcissism.
Exactly right.
That's what's not kosher in the temple.
Exactly.
Right? Because the piercings you said before of jewelry that were related to sexual things, kosher, even Maharal's explanation notwithstanding, but here we're saying, no, the mirrors themselves are an issue.
Exactly right.
Beautiful.
The temple is a place of sight. Temple Mount is called Har Yireh, the Mount of the Seeing. We know that we go to the temple to, quote, see the face of God, as the Torah tells us. And as such, the last thing that belongs in the temple is a mirror. So Moses objects to the mirrors not as instruments of seduction, but rather as symbols of narcissism, and that which prevents man from seeing anything but himself.
Wow.
But if that's the case, then why does God accept the mirrors? Why does he go so far as to credit them with a redemption? And to answer this question, I want to take a closer look at a story which I think plays a key role in the Midrash, and that is the one you know, the myth of Narcissus. So this is one of the most famous pieces of Greco-Roman mythology. Most people, like our Midrash, has got two parts to it. Most people are familiar with part 2, fewer people are familiar with part 1, but I want to kind of talk about both parts because I think they are necessary to understanding the whole. So we've got, the myth really begins with Echo. Echo is a nymph who is cursed so that she can't speak, she can only repeat what's been said to her. And she falls madly in love with Narcissus, who is this beautiful Greek youth. And I'm going to quote from Ovid's Metamorphoses because the language I think is stunning. By chance the boy, this is Narcissus, separated from his faithful companions, had cried, "Is anyone here?" And "Here," cried Echo back. Amazed, he looked around in all directions and with loud voice cries, "Come!" And "Come," she calls. She comes forth from the woods that she may throw her arms around the neck she longs to clasp. But he flees at her approach and fleeing says, "Hands off, embrace me not, may I die before I give you power over me." "I give you power over me," she says, "and nothing more." Thus spurned she lurks in the woods, her love remains and grows on in grief, her sleepless cares waste away her wretched form, only her voice and her bones remain, then only voice. So the story is that Echo falls madly in love with Narcissus and is rejected by him, and broken-hearted she wastes away until nothing but her voice remains, and this, boys and girls, is where echoes come from. So that's part 1 of the story. Then we have part 2.
Wait, sorry, I can't help myself, but briefly. Echo because she can only repeat back, or there's something about the sadness is also in the word echo, you're saying?
Well, the myth is trying to explain the origin of Echoes as a nymph who kind of just wasted away and her voice remains, and that is why we have back. Echoes. Beautiful. Yes. The continuation of the myth is that Narcissus, as punishment for his self-absorption, for his inability to really see anyone but himself, is made to fall in love with his own reflection. And again, I'll briefly quote, "Unwittingly he desires himself. Equally he kindles love and burns with love. How often did he offer vain kisses on the elusive pool? How often did he plunge his arms into the water, seeking to clasp the neck he sees there, but did not clasp himself in them. While he thus grieves, he wastes with love, pines away, and is slowly consumed by its hidden fire." And so Narcissus falls in love with himself, not knowing that he's actually seeing his own reflection. He loves himself and is spurned by himself, as cruelly as he had spurned Echo. And in his grief, he too wastes away until he dies, falls into the pond, and in his place grows a narcissus flower. And I feel like we could spend hours just discussing this myth because there's so much here. But very, very fundamentally, I'd like to suggest, excuse me, that this is a myth about the double danger of love, symbolized in the twin symbols of an echo and a mirror. One danger is that you love someone so much you completely lose yourself in your beloved. The other danger is that you love yourself so much you make your lover lose themselves in you. For two to become one, the myth seems to be saying, one of the two must be annulled. And that is the double danger of love. We have loss of self or loss of other, self-annihilation or self-absorption, echo or mirror. Love must always destroy someone.
That's pretty sad.
It's very sad. And invariably when I teach this, somebody will come up and say, yeah, but those were the Greeks, and the Greeks were so pessimist, and they had such a negative view of things, and we Jews are so much more life-affirming.
Sure.
To which I like to point out that we find the exact same concept of love in our own Bible. And you don't have to take my word from this, you can try this at home. If you do a search on the entire Bible for the root aleph, hey, bet, ahav, to love, and from the results you omit the laws, so you remain with only the narratives. And from the narratives you omit all the examples of parental love or sibling love, and you remain with just the stories of romantic love, you find that 9 out of 10 biblical love stories end in destruction.
Wow.
And I'm going to give you an almost exhaustive list.
Okay.
All right? We're going to do this quickly. Shechem loves Dinah. And the word love is used there. How does that story end?
Shechem rapes Dinah, and Dinah's brothers attack Shechem.
Exactly. So Dinah is raped, Shechem is killed in retaliation, destruction both of lover and of beloved. Next, Amnon loves Tamar. How does that story end?
Amnon dies, and another brother dies, and Yehuda, there is a positive with Yehuda, but Amnon definitely dies.
Not that Tamar, a different Tamar.
Help me.
Amnon rapes Tamar, and then he too is killed in retaliation, together with a bunch of other killings.
This
once
is
again,
Davidic
exactly,
times,
the
not
Davidic
Judah times.
children.
Okay.
Destruction once again, both of lover and of beloved. Samson loves Delilah. How does that end?
Delilah. You go through them. I remember, but we're going to run out of time. Delilah seduces him to sleep, cuts his hair, and then he goes
She
blind.
double crosses him. She
Yeah.
hands him over to his enemies. He commits suicide, to destruction of lover. Michal loves David, which is interesting. She's the only woman in the Bible who loves. All the other lovers in the Bible are men. She loves David. She marries him, but by all accounts it's a loveless marriage, and she dies brokenhearted and childless. Destruction of lover. King Solomon loves foreign women. They seduce him over to idolatry. His dynasty ends up losing the kingship. Once again, destruction of lover. Ezekiel compares the people of Israel who go into idolatry to a prostitute who loves many men. These men end up destroying her killing her in a very brutal way. Destruction of lover. Proverbs has this wonderful passage about an innocent youth falling in love with this sort of dark femme fatale who seduces and destroys him. Once again, destruction of lover. And then we have the Song of Songs, which says, love is as strong as death. And it does seem from all of these examples that love is exactly death, that the Bible is no more optimistic than Greek mythology about this possibility of love without one of the two people losing their identity. Both myth and Bible see love as a force of death and destruction.
Still sad.
Extremely sad. Against this extremely negative attitude to love, both in the Bible and in Greek mythology, we have our Midrash. Now, it's a question as to how much Greco-Roman mythology the rabbis actually knew. Scholars debate this. What we do know for a fact is that the rabbis knew the myth of Narcissus. We know this because there's a famous story in the Talmud about a beautiful young man looking at his reflection in a well, admiring the beauty of his flowing hair, and then realizing that that was rather prideful, so he's going to go and cut all his hair off and become a Nazir, a monk. And so the similarities between that story and the myth of Narcissus are enough for scholars to conclude that this is one piece of Greco-Roman mythology the rabbis did know. And I would like to claim that our Midrash is a rabbinic attempt to subvert the myth of Narcissus.
Okay.
Because notice there are several structural parallels between myth and Midrash. They're both seduction stories. They both feature a man and woman. They both take place in a field alongside a body of water. They both thematize food, either the wine and fish in the Midrash or the wasting away in the myth. And they both have a mirror. But as opposed to the mirror being held up to reflect only the self, like in the myth, in the Midrash, the mirror is held up to reflect both self and other.
They pass the mirror from one to the other.
No, they look at it together. Think of like a couple taking a selfie.
Oh, okay.
The mirror doesn't block the sight of the other here. It allows the lover and the beloved to gaze at one another even as they gaze at themselves. So seeing the self doesn't come at the expense of seeing the other, and seeing the other does not come at the expense of seeing the self. And notice we also have an echo. I am more beautiful than you. I am more beautiful than you. And again, as opposed to the myth where the echo is just a hollow repetition of somebody else's words, signifying a loss of identity, here the echo is an affirmation of that identity. I am more beautiful than you. Not I give you power over me, which is what the nymph echo says, but rather I am more beautiful than you. This is an echo not of self-annihilation, but of self-assertion. And so what we have in the Midrash is a rabbinic subversion of these two symbols of the double danger of love. The mirror, which in the myth signified the loss of other, is here used to reflect the other.
Mm-hmm.
And the echo, which in the myth signified the loss of self, is here used to assert that self. And so what we have here is a love which is neither self-destructive nor self-absorbed. It is a love which is ultimately redemptive. Which is why when the myth ends with death, the Midrash ends with birth, with new life.
Mm.
And which is also why I'd like to claim God accepts the mirrors into the tabernacle and later the temple, giving them place of pride at the entrance to the sanctuary.
Wow.
Because the mirrors symbolize, really more than anything else, this possibility of pure love.
Mm.
A love which allows lover and beloved to exist side by side without sacrifice, which we know is the love that God has for the Jewish people. The Talmud tells us that the love between God and the Jewish people is like the love between a man and a woman. And so it should come as no surprise that when the mirrors are basically taken and assembled into the bronze basin, the shape of that bronze basin is...
Round, I assume? No, it's not?
It's of sorts, but specifically what?
I don't know. What is it?
It's a narcissus flower.
What?
Yes.
Wait, really?
Yes. In the Book of Kings, where we have the description of the basin that was made for the temple,
Yeah.
it's described as perach shoshan, the flowers of lilies, which is the biblical name for a narcissus.
All right, and pardon my lack of knowledge, what does a narcissus flower look like? Play it out from here.
It's yellow and white, so it's got like the white petals of the yellow center. It's very
okay.
pretty.
Yes.
I think ultimately, and with this we'll bring it to an end, I think, this is what the Midrash is about. Eric Fromm, the psychologist, famously said, in love the paradox occurs that two beings become one and yet remain two. And I think this is a story of our Midrash. It is about the rabbinic belief, contrary to the Bible, contrary to Greek mythology, in the possibility of love that turns two beings into one and yet allows them to remain two. A love which gives and receives, which strengthens the other and nurtures the self. A love which really has the power, as we saw in the Midrash, to redeem.
Wow. Amazing. Holy cow. That was not at all where obviously I had no idea where you were going. I'm reflecting, first of all, it's used for the Kohanim to purify themselves. So on the first level, I'm thinking about how the Kohanim, the priests, represent the people, and there's some element of, in their relationship with God, can they be in a relationship that doesn't negate themselves, but also doesn't make them feel like narcissistic, I guess, as well, because they're the ones going into the temple doing their work. So as they're purifying themselves, how do they prepare for that moment is beautiful. And my first reaction was, well, I guess I'm going to save this Tisha B'Av Torah for my daughter Olivia's wedding, God willing, one day, because it's about love. But then also I realized, no, it's really also for her bat mitzvah, because it's also about if you're entering into adulthood and you're becoming part of the Jewish people, how do you have a relationship not only with spouses and friends in this type of love, but also in a way that with God in this way?
I think any relationship has the potential of loss of identity. It's obviously more pronounced with romantic and erotic relationships because they're so heated and so intense. But certainly in any other kind of intense relationship, and most certainly in the relationship with God, where the temptation to lose ourselves in the God encounter is very, very strong. And I think the rabbis are affirming, yes, connect to God as powerfully as you possibly can, but don't lose yourselves entirely.
Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Wow. And I'll ask you one more question where we started. That's what do you call it? Not tzvaot, tzovot.
Tzovot.
So bring us back to that piece also. Why within that the focus on it raising up hosts? What's the language there?
Well, as we said, the tzvaot, all of the legions, the armies of Israelite babies were created because of the passion which was engendered by these mirrors.
But is the raising up of an army somehow also connected to this negation versus not over subjugation theme?
I don't think we necessarily have to connect the two. I think the Midrash begins really as just an explanation of the word, But I think the reason this Midrash is so ingenious is that the storyteller is using that as a way to really give their own spin of the myth of Narcissus and say it doesn't have to be that way. Love doesn't always have to destroy. You can have love without loss of identity.
That's amazing. I think I asked you this last time, and this will be our last minute if you want to just opine, which is like, this is amazing. This is all there, but obviously it takes, I don't know what, years of work. I hopefully this is the beginning of another book idea for you, because like this sounds like one of the chapters in this book, that it's like so deep and beautiful. But like you had to do a lot to get there. Is it your sense that the rabbis thought we were able to do that work? Like, Greek ideas were so prevalent then that they would have immediately seen the reference to Shawshank Redemption kind of thing? Is that what you're imagining?
Not sure the rabbis, prescient though they were, would have seen the reference to Shawshank Redemption.
But it's like everyone back then would have figured this out?
The rabbis, this is not true of all rabbinic stories. I think it's certainly true of this one. A lot of rabbinic stories are created by rabbis for rabbis. And the rabbis have high expectations of their readers or their listeners, because these stories were oral before they were written. The rabbis expect for the audience of these stories to know a great deal of Bible and a great deal of myth, and be able to really read between the lines and pick up on the nuances and understand the references and really understand what it was that they were doing there. We know that these stories are created for highly literate, highly sophisticated audiences.
Beautiful. All right. Gila, I'm sad we're out of time. This was amazing, totally mind blown on love, on the basin, on the story of the mirrors, all of it totally new and fresh and like hitting me hard. As you said at the beginning, please God, one day may I merit to be serving in the Holy Temple in the time of the Messiah. And when I draw water to clean hands and feet from the narcissus flower-shaped basin with the mirrors around it, may I be reminded of why I'm doing that from this learning together. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
הנה מה טוב ומה נעים שבת אחים